Hey, 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 welcome to the Way of Valor. I am your host, Angie Taylor. And you guys, I am so excited about today's podcast interview because it kind of also feels like hanging out with my BFF, really. And so anytime I get a little time with this woman, my heart is full. I learned something new and I'm excited just to spend time with her. And so I'm very excited. This is your second time actually on the Way of Valor. That's just how great you are. There are very few people at this point that I've had back multiple times, but Brittney, you actually just released a book. And before I go too far, welcome to the podcast, Brittney Serpell.
Thank you so much for having me again. And I feel the same way. You're one of my favorites to hang out with. I wish we lived closer.
We would get in lots of trouble together.
Probably. Too much fun. That's what would happen.
I know. So, guys, Brittney is a parenting guru. She works and coordinates. I don't even know what your position is because I think on Loving on Purpose, she works with Danny Silk in the organization called Loving on Purpose. It's one of Valor's go-to ministries when it comes to families reaching out to me saying, hey, our family needs help. What are you doing there these days over at Loving on Purpose, Brittney?
Oh, so many things. That's what it feels like. My technical title, if you will, is Director of Family or Director of Parenting. But they've also thrown out senior leader because, you know, the reality of the transition from one generation to the next is starting to happen.
Wow.
So I get my hands in just about everything from systems to projects that we're building and very much all of our podcasts. But I build a lot of the content that we put out there is the newer role, but it's all around family. That's basically everything we do is around family. So yeah, I just like people.
Yeah. And guys, if you're unfamiliar with Loving on Purpose, definitely go check them out. They have ridiculously good resources and countless resources for your family, for your life, for your business. I've just been blown away by you guys. And I have to say, this is totally off topic, but I'm just going to go ahead and say this, that I'm loving the season we are in for women in ministry right now. For a very, very long time, women, you know, something like this wouldn't have happened where a ministry head or a ministry leader that was passing the baton would have been looking to potentially males to pass that baton to. And so it actually is such a great time. You know, I know we see in our news all the time the bashing on women, but I just want to honor this moment in ministry, honor Loving on Purpose for just saying, gosh, you know, the right person for this job is Brittney. Yeah. So congratulations to you. And I don't know if you want to speak to that, but we're seeing it like TD Jakes just did this with his daughter. We're just starting to see more of that. And this isn't a show about that at all, but I just want to congratulate them. We're ladies. And I think in a day and age in ministry and stuff, you know, and we honor men. You and I both honor men. We're both married to amazing men who we consider to be the head of our homes and we're partnered with. But I just want to honor you in that moment and honor your organization for saying, there's somebody that's the right fit for this job. And our world just needs more of those kind of conversations of who's really the best person for the job, regardless of gender. So.
Well, you know, my dad wrote a book called Powerful and Free, and it's confronting the glass ceiling for women in the church. So he wrote the book on the topic, mostly because he watched my mom fight for a position because she was qualified. And then I watched him most of my upbringing, especially in the church, where he was an advocate for the right person for the job. And if it was a woman, he was fighting just as hard as if it was a man. Yeah. And, you know, I'm married. So I think in more traditional settings or past settings, it would default to my husband.
Right.
Ben is incredibly qualified. I just have more time on the field, if you will. Like I've been
Right.
doing my reps over here in this field, and Ben's been doing his reps in a different field, and he's
Mhm.
catching up with me. And I'm so
Yeah.
excited to the blend that will happen. But right
Yes.
now I'm more on the tip of the spear than Ben is, and
Yes.
I think my dad's book, he gives it to men. He said, "You're the problem most of the time," and
Mhm.
it's really how to support women, how to encourage women, and how to see the best person for the job, man or woman, and really be a champion of them. So I grew up in a really great household for that,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I knew that I would have as much of Loving on Purpose as I wanted, and I
Yeah.
was willing to, do a good job of hosting what it
Yeah.
is that God put in my life and
Yes.
mature that. So as much as I wanted and as much as I was developing, I was going to be able to have, and
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
And I really love that. And I really want to stress that we are both saying, just hire the right one for the job. Like that, we're not saying hire somebody because they're a woman.
Yeah, no,
We're,
please don't
we're
do
Please
that.
don't do that. That's so disingenuous and gross, actually. I mean, I'm just such a fan of let's interview the best candidates and may the best candidate win, and congratulations to you, because that's appropriate. So anyway, we don't I it is an amazing book, and I love that your dad was so forward thinking on that. Brittney and I both are again. I run my own, or sit as the head of an organization that I started, and my husband works with me in that. But it works when you honor each other's roles, when you honor each other's giftings. It works. It's not
Mhm.
like this dominating woman over a man on any level, because my husband brings so much brilliance that I don't have to the table. So anyway, that's not what we came to talk about, but I did want to acknowledge that, because I do think it's a valuable place. And if you're in the camp of, wait a minute, here's what the Bible says, go check out Danny's book. Go check out Danny Silk's book, because that will help you tremendously. But that's not the book we came to talk about today. My beautiful friend just launched this book, Imperfect Parenting. Go get this book. I am so in love with this as a resource for families. I've already been marking it up. I've already been sending it to my friends. I got an autographed copy, so mine's extra special. But what I can tell you that I really love about your book is just the honest place that you come from, that is so desperately needed in the church today. So tell me kind of how, because I know you didn't want to write this. I know this was a challenge for you. So talk to me about why is it right now is the time to birth this baby into the world?
I wish I knew why right now. Because the joke has been last year was the hardest year of my life. And I mean, a year and a half really. And so we finished the book in January of this year and pumped it out to get it here in Mother's Day. And that was my big push. But, I don't know if because of my makeup and I like to look bigger than I am, my bark's bigger than my bite type of a thing. I don't know if the Lord knew that I needed some kind of stripping to really be willing to
Mm,
put it all out there.
wow,
And
wow.
so I was, my mom went through cancer. We had a lot of loss this last year with family members and friends. It just was a crazy year. So I was pretty distracted in there's a lot going on. So every time I would
Mhm.
meet with my editor and we would talk through this and, we'd be working through the chapters, I would just kind of be so vulnerable. So it was really, I think the Lord just said, let me help you get out of your way. Because
Mhm.
you're
Mhm.
probably going to want to do this perfect because that's my bend. I'm trying to do things perfect all the
Right.
time and control it. So in God's beautiful way, he said, let me give you, this beautiful opportunity that you didn't see as an opportunity to lean in and touch into a spot of your heart that maybe you wouldn't be more you I don't feel like he took advantage of me. Please don't hear that at all. But I feel like he
Mhm,
did see
mhm.
this space of
Yep.
now's the time. And we kind of created momentum before all the crazy hit. And so I was already in the race and it's
Mhm.
not like my personality to stop. And so I'm like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. It's not how I had it planned, but I do think that that season and just partnering with the Lord created something that I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, it is so good, and I think you are so spot on. You know this. I've been in the education space for 30 years working with families, and you are so spot on and so wise on really how you approach this. In fact, I'm going to read this quote because I read it and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is like, there were so many good things. And I'd love to just sit and read the book back to you because that would make a really interesting podcast. Um, but you're talking about family connection being really the chief priority, really the longing of all of our hearts. And you say this: when the war comes to our door, we have an opportunity and a choice to make. The opportunity is, will we recognize that the scary behavior coming out of people around us or ourselves is not the real issue, but a symptom of the war of connection, the fruit of connection in our closest relationships? If we could grab a hold of that truth, if we could simply grab a hold of that truth when we're seeing this in our kids, when we're seeing this in our spouse, of okay, you're being extra and you're being aggressive right now, and so often we respond to what's coming, the words coming out their mouth, right?
Yep.
And you unpack that for us because that was such a good you said that and I'm like, holy cow, if we could grab a hold of this.
Yeah, I think that's the part, parents often respond to the behavior that they see or they react to it is a better word. And, when I talk about connection, I really want people to dive into the reality of I'm trying to teach you how to have covenant relationships within your family, which
Mhm.
means that I have to go deeper than what I'm seeing. I have to be more committed to this process. I have to actually manage myself in the sea of disrespect, which is every parent's huge trigger is
Right.
disrespect. So if disrespect flags up and I'm going to address it, every parent I meet with, and go, so when do we address the disrespect? And I said, once we get our connection back. Because once we get our
Mm.
connection back, we actually have a place where we can influence. But until that happens, we're just going after something that isn't actually the problem. And
Mhm.
so that place of connection, really understanding how valuable it is. And people are people, so we're emotional and we're messy and we forget that. And then we
Mhm.
react to it and make more messes, and then we don't ever clean them up. And so we just
Yep.
build and build and build. And so I just try to get people back to the place of the biggest thing that you can ever have in your house is a healthy connection. So
Mhm.
that's the goal. And again, it's just trying to focus that place because we walk through our daughter in one of the hardest seasons where, and I talk about this in the book, and it was wild, and she was so disrespectful, but I wouldn't let the disrespect deter me from the mission of connection. And
Mhm.
that's why I won, is because
Yeah.
I made the most important goal connection. And I just locked onto that. And Ben and I both did. That
Yeah.
was the goal. And I think that's the hard part is, again, as parents, we get triggered by the disrespect and
Yep.
we get triggered by what we feel like we can't control because we can't
Yep.
control them.
Yep.
But I do get to control my pursuit of your heart. And
Yep.
that's what I'm trying to help parents unlock.
Woo! I do get to control the pursuit of your heart, and that is so good. I think the key here is really that you have to be so self-aware, right? That you have to be completely, in fact, it's hilarious that I'm saying this because literally my husband and I went for a walk yesterday And as we're talking about some situations, I literally am like, I'm pretty sure today I should assume that I'm the problem. And because I realized,
I love
man,
those days.
I'm not emotionally, I'm not emotionally in a great place for a number of reasons. I hadn't slept well, but when you lean into that, because what the second shift then is, okay, I to your point, you're getting triggered. And so I really love that. Now you were really astute in your book when you identified though. And I thought, gosh, there were so many things, Brittney, in your book that I'm like, oh, that was a really great observation. And what COVID did and the lockdowns did. Talk about your observation there, because I thought that was a really brilliant. I'd never like made those connections in the differences. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, what was really interesting is all the things that came to our doorstep as family coaches is, these families that were pretty connected from what I would see normally at church, all of a sudden, this concentrated time with your family. I think a lot of people learned, oh, I don't actually have the skills that I thought I had. I
Hmm.
and I think part of this is, you know, when we send our kids off to school or a working parent, I mean, I've done both of these things. And when I got all of my children back, thankfully we really do enjoy each other. And so I love that they were home, but it was an adjustment. And I found
Mhm.
myself realizing, oh, I need to grow if I'm going to lead the volume of time together, because I've
Mhm.
never had that before since they were 2, and now they have an opinion about everything, and we're navigating through math like we've never had before. But we just, all of a sudden, everybody is confronted with their own junk of, I don't know how to respond very well. I don't know how to
Mhm.
manage myself very well. I don't know
Mhm.
how to set healthy boundaries because I only had to do really small doses of it before and after school.
Right.
And
Right.
so all of a sudden, we've got on our doorstep this wave. And then on top of everything else that was coming out, all of a sudden, uh, because I think parents got more involved in schools, lots of other things started coming out that they were discovering, that
Mhm.
different agendas that they didn't realize, because all of a sudden they are now so submerged in their children's lives in a way that they never had before. So we had a lot of families that were discovering, my kid is not okay, or I'm not okay with my kid, or
Right.
I'm not okay with my spouse.
Mm.
And it did this kind of peeled up the rug, and all of a sudden we had to look at all of our stuff. And so I was busy, that's for sure. I was
Mhm.
busy in
Mhm.
that season. But it's been, I think it did reveal to a lot of people where they were at as far as their
Yeah.
maturity, their self awareness, and really their skill set, when it came to, can you handle your kids full time, which
Right.
no parent
Yeah.
wants to think about that.
That's true. And I think I honestly think, because you talk about during, World War II, during various things, during 9/11, our country pulled
Yeah,
together. We connected with others in a profound way, whereas COVID was about isolation and separation. And so you and I both know so many families that suffered alone.
yeah. And that's the hard part, is that, as Americans traditionally are, we rally and attack the beast. Well, all of a sudden the neighbor was the beast. All of a
Right.
sudden the person at the grocery store is the beast. So this thing that makes us really great, they turned on us. And
Mhm.
fear is a real motivator,
Yeah.
and fear won and is still winning, not as loud.
Sure.
But I remember going through the grocery store with my kids, and I said, you know what? I've never asked you to do this. I said, but I want you to smile the whole time we're in there. And they're like,
Mm.
why? I said, because a smile can quiet fear, and we don't carry
Ooh.
fear.
You
And
know what? I just felt that. I just felt that. A smile. You can say that again. I
I said,
loved that.
a smile can quiet fear. and we don't
Mm,
do fear. And I think as silly as it feels to be smiling in the grocery store, that
mhm.
season just taught my kids to not be on this position where we have to be afraid of everyone, but
Right.
really we get to be this light in this scary
Yeah.
world. And that is very much what COVID did, is it just isolated everybody and made everybody afraid of everyone. So we were no
Mhm.
longer this connected unit, and it broke apart so many relationships. That's the other really hard part, is it
Yeah.
really has done that.
It did, and I think it's really important that when your kids come in the room, when your husband comes in the room, does your face light up? Does your,
Yeah.
like, because so many of us are better at loving our pets than loving our family. And because our pets are easy, right? And
Yeah.
so but when your face lights up, that connection and that smile, to your point, is so profound. So talk to the family, Brittney, right now, that they're hearing this and they listen, the marriage is a wreck, the kids are a train wreck, and they're responding a lot of times because I think a lot of parents parent from fear, from a place of
Mm-hmm.
fear. So, talk to that family. What would you tell them?
I think the first step is owning your own stuff. So being willing to change. We just went through 16 weeks with a bunch of about 45 people, and it's called Kylo University. And what happened is there's men and women on here, all different ages, but what happened is families were absolutely transformed because the focus on yourself. What do I need to do to get healthy? What do I need to do to be powerful? How do I
Mhm.
have love as my counselor instead of fear? Once I start showing up as that person to my family and stop assigning blame or giving
Mhm.
excuses, but I own
Mhm.
my stuff and I lead in it, it's really
Yeah.
hard to go unnoticed. And so what
Mhm.
happens is those around us start to wonder, what is it that you're doing? They start to encounter
Mhm.
you with more love. They start encountering you as a safer place. You
Mhm.
are less offended. You have better tools in communication. So much of this, if you want transformation in those intimate relationships, you've got to be willing to do the work yourself. And
Mhm.
I think that is where I want to inspire you, that I have so much hope for families as long as
Mhm.
you're willing to do the work. And
Yeah.
I know God shows up. So,
I love that. And it is the idea of, man, so many people are reaching out to try to fix the problems of the world,
mhm.
and their home life is a mess. And it's like, we would resolve so much if we took care of our home lives.
Yes. I think that's the last quote in my book. It's Mother Teresa, if you want world peace, go home and love your family. I should have changed
Hmm.
it to, if you want world transformation, go home and love your family. Because that is it, is if you
True.
love your family well, um,
Yes.
I think you would solve a lot of the problems we've got today.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. And guys, and I'm with Brittany that there is so much hope. There's your kids go through seasons. They go through
Yeah.
seasons. It's very, when they're little, they don't question anything. That first season, they don't question anything that you're giving them. They'll believe, literally, you can tell them anything and they're going to believe it, hence Santa Claus, right? But when they're in middle school or in upper elementary, they're like, okay, this is what my family's saying. And they're starting to comprehend it. They're starting to be able to distinguish between truth and non-truth. When they're in high school and late middle school, literally their brains are wired, and God created us this way, to question, to
Mhm.
challenge, to start evaluating, but do I believe this truth? And I think a lot of times parents see that as rebellion.
Mhm.
And so talk to that space of how do we reach through that space with our kids when that's a very normal place for kids developmentally to
Mhm.
go.
My dad used to say, when I would go to the parenting seminars he would do, is you reap what you sow. So if you are sowing fear and control from toddlerhood, it will show up in the teenage
Mhm.
years. Because again, like you said, those toddler years, Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus. All right. Well, if I'm trying to control and I minimize your ability to become a thinker, when you
Wow.
are in the season of a thinker, you're trying
Mhm.
to fight me, but I'm trying to control you. So
Mhm.
much of this is learning how do we empower our kids in all the different stages and the seasons that they're in, which is growing up. Like I have to grow. If I stay the same parent when they're 2 to when they're
It's
12,
good.
ooh, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard. So I
Right.
have to stay ahead of them in leading and maturing so that I can handle every stage that's happening. And so I think so much of this is, are you doing a good job of empowering your kids at 2 so that you're ready for when they're 12 or when they're 16, and understanding the stages that they're in. I call it,
Mhm.
we've got the cop, the coach, and the consultant. That's the
Mhm.
role that you
It's
play as
good.
the parent. And knowing, the cop is, there's lots of rules. Don't put the knife in the electrical outlet. Don't do that. Don't pull the cat's tail. And then you're coaching like, oh, I don't know how that's going to work if you don't turn your homework in on time. It's, you
Mhm.
might have to limit what you get to do because you didn't get a good grade. We change. And then the consultant role, I think, is probably one of the hardest roles for parents, because you realize
Mhm.
I have to be willing to sit on my hands almost. Like I can't
Yes.
do it anymore.
Yes.
And when you've seen your baby grow up, you want to be in there for all the things. And but really it's, you practice asking really great questions and empowering them through all the stages, and becoming the consultant is a little bit easier. It's not really easy, but it's definitely
Still
gets
hard.
easier
Yeah.
when you are practicing this. So that's what
Yeah.
I would lean into, is empowering questions, and practice that, because you want to reap what you sowed. And that's, I mean,
So
Delaine's
true.
about to graduate. I can't believe it. And we're reaping what we've been sowing, and I'm
Yeah.
so proud of
Yeah.
her, and I'm so thankful
Mhm.
for just the work and just devotion that we gave to stewarding this gift so
Yeah.
well.
Which is so good. It's so great that you can have your child in her senior year saying, "Man, as a parent, we did the work. This is so great. We did the work," which is because you don't get that time back. You don't get a redo with your kids. So well done to you guys. I can personally attest. I'm a huge fan of Miss Delaney. I always tell her I'm not graduating her
Yeah.
because I love her so much, and it makes me so sad to have her move on from my school. Brittney, this has been so fun, but guys, this is just like a hint of what is in this book. So go out and grab this book. Brittney, tell us where to find the book. Tell us how to find you. We'll make sure we put it in our show notes too.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram. I do lots of fun parenting stuff on there. It's Brittney Serpell. My name's fun, so definitely look in the comments for how to spell it. Imperfectparenting.co is where you'd find the book, and we're the only place to get it until about June 13th. That's when Amazon opens up. So if you want it, you got to go here first, and then after that, Amazon will have it.
Awesome. And we'll throw that in the show notes too, you guys. So go check it out. Hey, guys, if you know a parent that's in the thick of things, share this podcast out with them, repost it to your page, give Brittney a huge shout out. Make sure you follow her. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.